Recursion in Java. So what is recursion? Recursion is a situation in which the solution to a problem depends on the solutions to smaller instances of the same problem. Examples of recursion include factorial, where, for example, 5 factorial is 5 times 4 factorial, and 4 factorial is 4 times 3 factorial, going all the way down to 1, and so on and so forth. Another example of recursion includes fractals, which are patterns that are composed of smaller versions of the same pattern. This tree is an example of one. At the end of each branch, the pattern repeats and repeats all the way up to the top of the tree. But how does this apply to programming? Recursion in programming is a method that calls itself. Let's look at an example. Suppose we had an integer called n, and we wanted to reduce it by 1 over and over. This is a very simple recursive method because within it, the original method is called. The method subtract, when called, returns the result of when the method subtract is called again with the integer n minus 1. So if the method was called from the main, where n equals 5, the method would be called again with 5 minus 1, 4, and then the method would be called again with 4 minus 1, which is 3, and this would go on forever with no end. This is called the recursive call. As you can see, the recursive call is one of 4 features common to almost all recursive methods. Other than that, recursive methods also take in values as parameters, in this case one integer n, and return a value. The data types of these are written in the method declaration statement. However, this method is not particularly useful, as a definitive value will never be returned, as subtract will just be called over and over again. This is why all recursive methods should contain a base case, which is the 4th essential component, where if certain conditions are met, the method will not call itself again, it will return a value instead. Let's modify this recursive method to contain a base case. The method will reduce n by 1 until n equals 0. This is what the method will look like. Let's trace it and observe what happens. If n equals 2, the method will trigger the recursive call as 2 does not equal 0, in which case the method would be called again with n equals 1, and as 1 does not equal 0, the recursive method will be called again with n equals 0. As n now does equal 0, n will simply be returned. However, this is a pointless method, as whatever positive integer you give as a parameter, 0 will be returned. If a negative was put into n, the recursive method would continue forever. But of course, this is simply an example. Let's look at another, more complicated example that actually does something. This is where we come to the reverse a word problem. Supposing we took the word hello and wanted to reverse it. Firstly, we remove and store the first letter, H. We are now left with LO. E-L-L-O. Then, if we take off the first letter again, we leave L-L-O in word. If we continue this process, removing the first letter every time until we are left with only one letter, the reverse of this letter is simply itself, as in O reversed will still be O. The method will return the value of this one letter. Then if you add all the letters from the stack back to O, beginning with the one most recently removed, and reassemble the word, it has been reversed. This is a recursive process. The removal of the first letter is the recursive call, and the base case is where the length of the word is equal to or less than 1. The method would take in the string to be reversed as the parameter and return the reversed string. We have the 4 key components. So how would this look in Java? The method would look like this. As you can see, the method takes in a string as a parameter and returns a string too, which will be the reversed word. The base case is when the word length is less than 2, in which case the word will be simply one letter. So reversed it will be the same, so just that one letter will be returned. And finally, the recursive case, which calls the reverse method again with the contents of word excluding the first letter in a substring, along with the first character added onto the end. Let's trace this method with the value of word being set to cat. The length of cat is 3, so the recursive case will trigger. the reverse method will be called again, with the word excluding the first letter as the parameter, and the first letter being held within the original method call. The string at will be the parameter of the next method call. The length of this, 2, is not less than 2, it's equal to 2, so the recursive call will be called again. The parameter for this call is just t, as the first letter a has been removed in the substring and stored in this method call. Now, on the third call of the method, the length of the contents of word t is 1, which is smaller than 2, so t is returned to the second call of the method in place where the third method is called. The char stored here, a, is added on to the end, and the string ta is returned to the first method call, whereas the c stored here is added on. So the completed reversed word is returned to the main method. So, to form a recursive method, you need a return data type, an input parameter, a base case, and a recursive case.